Hi, I'm going to show you some basic drawing graphs and some of the features of GSolve and trace on the graphical calculator. So if you go to the graph menu, so that's menu 5, okay, and type in your equation of the graph you want to draw. So let's go with x cubed. So it has to be the x that's just below the alpha. Okay, and the hat button is for powers, and to get out of there I need to move along using the moving big button thing. Right, then we've got minus x squared and minus 6x. I'm going to draw that graph. So let's go. Okay, so it's drawn it, but it's not great because I can't see the whole thing. So very often if either it looks like you haven't got a graph or it's in a ridiculous position, you need to change the view window. This is the most common thing you have to do. So if you look at F3, it says V window, and it lets you change the minimum maximum values for the X and Y scale, and if you've got a parametric, T or theta. Okay, so I'm going to, instead of having to pick my own numbers, I'm going to choose the standard one. It's on initial at the moment, which is nice and square, but standard goes from -10 to 10, nice and straightforward. Let's have a look at that graph. That's much better. Okay, if you want to find out some coordinates of a point, we can press the trace button and you can just move your cursor along, or you could type in the x value that you want to find the y value for. So say I wanted to know what the y value was where x is -1, I just type -1 and then press execute, and I can see the y value is 4. Okay. Another great button is GSolve. So if we go with GSolve, let's say I want to find the y-intercept. So that one's F4 y-intercept. Okay, 0, 0. If I press GSolve and press root, shows me where we're crossing the x-axis. So there's the first root. To get the next one, I press my cursor along to the right and to the right again, and then you can go backwards and forwards. So it tells us what the x values are where y is 0. Okay, on GSolve, you can also find out where the maximum point is. So I press max, and it only gives me decimal values here. Okay, if I go GSolve and min, we get the minimum points. Okay, right. Another feature that's quite useful is the zoom feature. So you go zoom, and you can change your axes. So if you can see, if you want to zoom further out or in, you're there. If you press auto, it usually resizes it sensibly if you can't see a graph. So it's a bit like V window. If you press F6, you can see one of the handy things there is square. Okay, and that squares up so that if you're drawing anything on that graph, the grid will be a nice square grid. So for example, y equals x will be at a nice 45-degree angle. Okay, so I'm going to also draw y is 2x plus 1. Okay, so if I wanted to get rid of the cubic graph, rather than deleting it, I can just deselect it, and now if I draw, I can only see that linear graph. But actually, I want to draw both at the same time, so I'm pressing F1 for select. That's it, so we see both of them. And now, let's say I want the points of intersection, I press GSolve and then intersect. Okay, it gives me the first point of intersection, and again, I press the cursor along to the right to get my next points and my next points. So that's another way of solving, for example, a quadratic and linear equation, but it will only give decimal values, but it's useful for checking.